What would you risk to defend a complete stranger? Your safety, your job, everything you've worked for. In a working-class neighborhood where rain hammered the pavement, at a diner called Rose's, a waitress named Vanessa did exactly that. It was a late Tuesday evening, the kind where the air hung heavy with the smell of burnt coffee and grilled cheese, and the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like dying flies. Vanessa, early 30s, moved between the worn vinyl booths in her brown uniform with cream collar, the Rose name tag catching the light as she worked. Her dark hair was pulled back tight, exhaustion carved into the lines around her eyes, but there was something sharp in her gaze, something that refused to quit. She was the kind of woman who noticed when regulars were having a bad day, who poured coffee with one hand while mentally calculating if she could afford Maya's field trip. Always carrying the weight of being both mother and provider. But that night, something inside her snapped into place, something that would change not just her life, but her daughter's future and an entire neighborhood. Rose's diner was half full with late shift workers hunched over plates of meatloaf and mashed potatoes, the conversation a low hum beneath the crackle of the old radio. Vanessa balanced a tray of waters, weaving between tables with the practiced ease of someone who'd been doing this too long, her eyes constantly scanning for empty cups or impatient hands. Rain streaked the windows, blurring the neon "open" sign into a red smear against the darkness outside. At a corner booth near the back, a man sat alone. He was still, almost unnaturally so, wearing a worn denim jacket and a faded baseball cap pulled low enough to shadow his face. He nursed a cup of black coffee, both hands wrapped around it like it was an anchor keeping him from drifting away. There was something about him, the way he kept his shoulders hunched, his eyes down, that made Vanessa think he was running from something, or maybe just trying to disappear for a while. She'd noticed him the moment he walked in, soaked from the rain, ordering quietly and asking for nothing but to be left alone. That was fine by her. Rose's diner had always been that kind of place, a sanctuary for people who needed one. But then the door swung open with a force that made the bell jangle too loud and everything changed. Two police officers stepped inside, their boots heavy on the checkered linoleum, rain dripping from their uniforms. The taller one, broad-shouldered, jaw tight with aggression, scanned the room with predatory focus. His partner, smirking and confident, followed close behind. The diner went quiet, forks hovering midair, conversations dying mid-sentence. Vanessa felt the shift in the air immediately, that familiar prickle of danger that came from years of watching people with power decide who deserved respect and who didn't. She'd been on the wrong side of that equation too many times. Her instincts screamed that this wasn't a routine patrol stop. The officer's eyes locked onto the man in the corner booth, and they moved toward him with deliberate intent, hands already resting on their belts. The stranger didn't look up, just kept staring into his coffee like if he stayed still enough, he might become invisible. Vanessa's grip tightened on her tray. She glanced toward the kitchen where her boss Jerry was pretending not to notice, his face already saying don't get involved. But something in Vanessa, something forged from being dismissed and underestimated her entire life, wouldn't let her look away. This was the moment everything would change. She just didn't know it yet. If you're already feeling the weight of this story, stay with me. You don't want to miss what comes next. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from. It's nice to know our audiences from every corner of the planet. Officer Barrett reached the booth first, his shadow falling across the stranger like a threat. He was stocky, built like someone who'd spent years using his body to intimidate, and his hand rested casually on his belt near his weapon. His partner Hayes hung back, that smirk still playing at the corners of his mouth, arms crossed like he was watching a show he'd seen 100 times before. "Evening," Barrett said, his voice too loud for the quiet diner. "Need to see some ID." The stranger, Michael, though Vanessa didn't know his name yet, looked up slowly. His face was drawn, tired in a way that went deeper than one sleepless night. "I'm just having coffee, officer, not causing any trouble." Didn't ask if you were causing trouble, Barrett shot back, leaning forward with both hands planted on the table. Asked for ID. You got a problem with that? Michael's hands tightened around his coffee cup, and Vanessa saw them trembling slightly. I left my wallet in my car. I can go get it if. Convenient, Hayes cut in, that smirk widening. Real convenient, stand up. We're gonna have a conversation outside. The diner had gone completely silent now. Vanessa caught Jerry's eye across the counter. Her boss was shaking his head in tiny, frantic movements, mouthing don't. She'd worked at Rose's for 6 years, knew the rules. Keep your head down, don't make waves, let the cops do whatever they wanted because fighting back only made things worse. But she also remembered being 17, walking home from her first waitressing job, when 2 officers pulled her over for looking suspicious in her own neighborhood. Remembered the way they'd talked to her, like she was nothing, like she deserved whatever they decided to do. The fear in her chest had felt exactly like what she saw in the stranger's eyes right now. Vanessa set down her tray and stepped forward, arms crossing over her chest. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. He's a paying customer. Unless you've got a warrant, you need to back off. Barrett's head snapped toward her, eyes narrowing. This doesn't concern you, sweetheart. Why don't you go refill some coffee and let us do our job? It concerns me when you harass people in my section, Vanessa said, taking another step closer. Her heart hammered against her ribs, but she kept her chin up. He's done nothing wrong. He ordered coffee, he's sitting quietly. What's the problem? Hayes laughed, a sharp, ugly sound. Your section, you're just a waitress, know your place. The words hit like a slap. How many times had she heard variations of that? Just a waitress. Just a single mom, just someone who doesn't matter. But this time something was different. This time she was done shrinking. My place, Vanessa said quietly, is standing up when I see something wrong. A movement caught her eye. A kid, maybe 19, in the corner booth had his phone out, camera pointed at the scene. Others were reaching for their phones too, the quiet diner suddenly alive with the glow of recording screens. Old Joe, a regular who'd been coming to Rose's since before Vanessa started working there, cleared his throat from his usual spot by the window. She's right. Leave the man alone. He ain't done nothing. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the diner. Mrs. Chen, the teacher who always ordered decaf, nodded firmly. Even the truck driver at the counter grunted his support. Barrett's face flushed red, jaw clenching as he straightened up. He took a step toward Vanessa, close enough that she could smell the coffee on his breath, his voice dropping to something low and menacing. You're making a big mistake, a real big mistake. But Hayes had noticed the phones, seen the way the whole diner was watching, recording. He grabbed Barrett's arm, his smirk fatting into something more cautious. Come on, not worth it. Let's go. Barrett shook him off but stepped back, pointing a thick finger at Vanessa. We'll remember this. You better believe we'll remember this. The 2 officers turned and walked out, the door slamming behind them hard enough to make the bell jangle violently. The police cruiser's lights flashed once as they pulled away, disappearing into the rain-soaked night. The diner exhaled collectively. The kid with the phone grinned, already tapping at his screen. That was insane. This is totally going viral. Vanessa's hands were shaking so badly she almost dropped the coffee pot as she refilled Michael's cup. The adrenaline was draining away, leaving her hollow and trembling. She'd just confronted 2 cops. She'd just made herself a target. What the hell had she been thinking? Michael looked up at her, and for the first time she saw his face clearly. There was something in his eyes, gratitude, yes, but also something haunted, heavy. You didn't have to do that, he said softly. Vanessa managed a tight smile, though her throat felt thick. Yeah, I did. He stood slowly, reaching into his jacket pocket. For a moment, she thought he might actually have his wallet after all, but instead, he pulled out a crumpled $50 bill and tucked it under his empty mug. Their eyes met one more time, and she saw something there she couldn't quite name, recognition, maybe, or respect. Then he pulled his cap lower, turned up his collar, and walked out into the rain without another word, disappearing into the darkness like he'd never been there at all. Vanessa stood there, coffee pot still in hand, watching the space where he'd been. Her whole body felt electric, terrified, alive. She had no idea who that man was. She had no idea what she'd just set in motion. She just knew that nothing would ever be the same. Vanessa woke to small hands shaking her shoulder and Maya's voice, breathless with excitement. "Mommy, Mommy, wake up, you're on the internet." She blinked against the morning light streaming through her bedroom window, disoriented. Her phone was buzzing on the nightstand, not just one notification but a constant vibration like an angry swarm. Maya thrust her tablet into Vanessa's face, eyes wide. "Look, it's you." The video was shaky, shot from the corner booth but unmistakable. There she was, arms crossed, facing down Officer Barrett while the stranger sat hunched in the background. Her voice came through tinny but clear. "It concerns me when you harass people in my section. He's done nothing wrong." The caption read, "Waitress stands up to cops harassing innocent man. #defend the stranger." Vanessa's stomach dropped. The view count was climbing even as she watched, 50,000, 60,000 higher. The comments section was a war zone. Thousands calling her brave, a hero, someone who'd had the guts to stand up when others stayed silent. But just as many calling her reckless, anti-cop, a troublemaker looking for attention. Someone had screenshot her face, circled it, added "find her." By the time she got to Rose's diner for her shift, a news van was parked across the street. Jerry met her at the door, his face grim. He pulled her into the back office, away from the handful of customers scattered through the dining room, noticeably fewer than usual. "Corporate's been calling all morning," he said quietly, rubbing his face with both hands. "Customers too, some supporting you some," he trailed off. "I'm trying to protect you, Vanessa, I really am. But if this keeps up, if people stop coming because they don't want to be associated with—" "I understand." Vanessa cut him off, though her throat felt tight. She couldn't afford to lose this job. She couldn't afford anything. The shift dragged. Regulars who usually chatted avoided her eyes. Mrs. Chen came in, ordered her usual decaf, then left without touching it. 20 minutes later, whispering an apology Vanessa pretended not to hear. By lunch, the diner felt like a ghost town. When she got to her car after closing, the windshield was shattered, spiderwebbed around a brick. A note was tucked under the wiper, the words scrawled in angry capitals, "Mind your business." Her hands shook as she pulled it free. She looked around the parking lot, suddenly aware of how empty it was, how dark the streetlights seemed, how alone she was. The voicemail started that evening, blocked numbers, voices distorted or screaming. "You think you're a hero? We know where you live. Your daughter walks home from school every day, doesn't she?" One was just heavy breathing, lasting 30 seconds before disconnecting. Then her ex-boyfriend called. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "Saw you on TV, Derek said, his voice carrying that smug satisfaction she remembered too well. "Making quite the scene. Judges don't like unstable mothers, you know. All that attention, putting yourself in danger, fighting with cops." He let the implication hang. "Maybe Maya should come live with me for a while, somewhere stable." Vanessa's vision blurred. "You don't give a damn about Maya. You haven't seen her in 8 months. "I do now. My lawyer will be in touch." The line went dead. At daycare pickup, the teacher, Ms. Rodriguez, usually so warm, pulled Vanessa aside with an uncomfortable expression. "Some of the other parents have been asking questions about whether you're that woman from the video. They're concerned about," she gestured vaguely, "the environment." Vanessa stood frozen, humiliation burning through her chest. In the car, Maya was quiet, picking at the strap of her backpack. Finally, she looked up, her 8-year-old face so serious it broke Vanessa's heart. "Mommy, did you do something bad?" That's when Vanessa felt her world crumble completely. She pulled into an empty parking lot and just sat there, hands gripping the steering wheel, trying not to cry in front of her daughter, trying to figure out how standing up for what was right had turned into this nightmare. That night she sat in Maya's room long after her daughter fell asleep, listening to every creak of the apartment building, every car door slamming outside. A baseball bat leaned against the chair beside her. Her phone sat in her lap, silent now, but she couldn't stop checking it, couldn't stop jumping at every sound. 24 hours ago, she'd just been a waitress trying to get by. Now she was a target, and she had no idea how to protect Maya from what she'd set in motion. Chapter 3: The Mysterious Guardian. The delivery truck arrived during the morning rush 3 days after the video went viral. Vanessa was pouring coffee for one of the few remaining regulars when the driver walked in, clipboard in hand, looking around. Delivery for Vanessa. Jerry nodded toward her, confused. They hadn't ordered anything. Corporate handled all equipment purchases, and they definitely weren't in the budget for upgrades. The driver and his partner wheeled in a massive box on a dolly. When they cut it open, Vanessa's breath caught. A commercial-grade espresso machine, gleaming chrome and black, the kind she'd only seen in high-end coffee shops downtown. Top of the line, probably worth more than she made in 6 months. "There's gotta be a mistake," Jerry said, circling it like it might explode. "We didn't order this. Says right here for Vanessa, already paid in full." The driver handed over a small envelope, then left with a shrug. Vanessa's hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was a typed note on plain paper, no signature, no return address. Just 3 words: "For standing up." Jerry stared at the machine, then at her. "Who the hell sent this?" "I have no idea," Vanessa whispered. But for the first time in days, she felt something other than fear. Someone out there was watching. Someone thought what she'd done mattered. The next morning, she found an envelope slipped under her apartment door. Inside was $2,000 in cash and another typed note. "For Maya's future." Vanessa sat on her kitchen floor and cried, the money clutched in her shaking hands. She'd been down to $40 in her checking account. The electric bill was overdue. And now this. 2 days later, she walked out to her car, still driving it with the shattered windshield because she couldn't afford to replace it, and stopped dead. Brand new tires, all 4 of them, the smashed windshield, replaced with pristine glass, a note tucked under the wiper: "Stay safe." Then groceries appeared on her doorstep. Not just a bag or two, but weeks' worth: fresh produce, meat, staples, even Maya's favorite cereal. When Vanessa called the daycare to ask about payment arrangements, the director paused. "Oh, your account is paid in full for the next 3 months. Didn't you?" "No," Vanessa breathed, "I didn't." Online, something else was happening. #Defend the Stranger had evolved beyond just her video. People across the country were sharing their own stories of standing up to injustice, of finding courage when it cost them everything. A college student in Michigan started a GoFundMe. "Help Vanessa, single mom who stood up." Within 3 days, it had raised $15,000. Jerry showed her the page during her break, his eyes wide. "People really give a damn, huh?" Vanessa couldn't speak. Strangers were sending money, leaving comments. "You inspired me to speak up at work. My daughter saw your video and said she wants to be brave like you. Don't let them silence you." But the pressure didn't let up. Every night, a police cruiser parked across from her apartment building, headlights cutting through her bedroom window. Barrett and Hayes made a point of driving past Rose's diner during her shifts, slowing down to stare through the windows. Once, Barrett raised 2 fingers to his eyes, then pointed at her, "Watching you." Vanessa's hands shook every time the diner door opened, every time a customer raised their voice, every time she walked to her car in the dark. Maya came home from school one afternoon with a drawing clutched in her small hands. She'd made it in art class, a stick figure in a brown dress with a cape flowing behind her. Standing tall with arms crossed, across the top in careful, wobbly letters, My superhero mommy. Mrs. Patterson said we should draw our heroes, Maya explained, beaming. I drew you. Vanessa pulled her daughter close, breathing in the smell of her strawberry shampoo, feeling the weight of every threat, every anonymous gift, every moment of the past week pressing down on her shoulders. She took the drawing to work the next day and taped it to the register at Rose's diner, right where she could see it. She still didn't know who was sending the gifts, didn't know if the stranger from that rainy night had anything to do with it, or if it was just kind people who'd seen the video. But every time she looked at Maya's drawing, every time another envelope appeared or another bill got mysteriously paid, she felt something shifting inside her. Maybe standing up had cost her, but maybe, just maybe, it was worth something too. The black luxury car pulled up to Rose's diner exactly 1 week after that rainy night, sliding into a parking spot like it owned the world. Vanessa was refilling coffee for a truck driver when she saw it through the window, sleek, expensive, completely out of place in this neighborhood. The door opened and the stranger stepped out, except he wasn't the stranger anymore. Gone was the worn denim jacket and faded baseball cap. He wore a tailored charcoal suit that probably cost more than Vanessa made in a year, his face clean-shaven, hair styled, posture radiating the kind of confidence that came from boardrooms and power lunches. He looked like he'd stepped out of a business magazine. And that's exactly where people recognized him from. Holy shit, the truck driver breathed, coffee cup frozen halfway to his mouth. That's Michael Gray. The name rippled through the diner. Heads turned. Phones came out not to record this time but to Google to confirm. Michael Gray, CEO of Gray Corp Industries, Billionaire, one of the most powerful men in the country. What the hell was he doing at Rose's diner? Vanessa's heart hammered against her ribs as he walked through the door. Their eyes met across the room, and recognition flickered in his. That same gratitude she'd seen when he left that $50 bill, but now mixed with something else. Purpose. He nodded toward an empty booth in the back, the same one he'd sat in that night. Jerry was staring at her, mouth slightly open. Is that? Yeah, Vanessa whispered. She wiped her hands on her apron, suddenly aware of how worn it was, how the coffee stain on her uniform wouldn't come out no matter how many times she washed it. She walked to the booth on legs that felt unsteady, slid into the seat across from him. Up close the transformation was even more striking, but his eyes, those were the same, tired, haunted, real. My name is Michael Gray, he said quietly, leaning forward with his hands clasped on the table. I needed to get away from my life for a while. The empire, the pressure, the people who only see dollar signs when they look at me. I was driving through your neighborhood trying to remember what normal felt like, what it was like to just be someone. Vanessa's throat felt tight. Those cops, they knew who you were. Barrett and Hayes recognized me from financial news coverage, pulled up, cornered me, started talking about donations to the police fund. His jaw tightened. They wanted a bribe to leave me alone. When I refused, they decided to make me uncomfortable enough to pay up. He paused. Then you stepped in. I didn't know you were. Exactly. Michael's eyes locked onto hers. You didn't know. You didn't defend me because I was rich or powerful. You defended me because it was right. You defended a principle. In my world, that's extinct. People tell you what you want to hear. They protect you because of what you can do for them, not because it's the right thing to do. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a manila folder, sliding it across the table. Vanessa's hands trembled as she opened it. The first document was a deed to Rose's diner, made out in her name. Her vision blurred as she flipped through the pages. A renovation and operating budget, $250,000. Legal documents for a trust fund in Maya's name. Education expenses covered from kindergarten through graduate school. I can't, her voice cracked. This is too much, I can't accept this. Why? Michael asked simply. Because I'm nobody, Vanessa whispered, the words she'd been told her whole life spilling out. I'm just a waitress. I don't deserve. You're the person who stood up when everyone else looked away. Michael cut her off, his voice firm but not unkind. Do you know how rare that is? How many people in that diner knew what those cops were doing was wrong but stayed silent because it was safer? Vanessa thought of Jerry mouthing don't, of the other customers who'd watched until she forced them to pick a side. 24 hours ago, Michael continued, I'd forgotten what integrity looked like. You reminded me that some things are worth more than keeping your head down, that some people still choose the hard right over the easy wrong. He paused, something breaking in his expression. My daughter would have been Maya's age. She died 3 years ago. Leukemia. Vanessa's breath caught. I'm so sorry. I'd give anything, everything, to give her the future you're trying to build for your daughter. Let me help you build it, not as charity, as thanks, as proof that standing up for what's right should mean something. Tears spilled down Vanessa's cheeks. She looked at the papers spread across the table, at this impossible offer, at the life-changing decision sitting in a manila folder. What if I fail? What if I take this and I can't? Michael smiled, the first real smile she'd seen from him. You won't. You've already proven you don't back down. That's rarer than money, Vanessa. That's worth investing in. Through the window, she could see Maya's drawing taped to the register. My superhero mommy. Her hands were shaking so hard the papers rustled. No strings, she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. No strings, just a thank you. Vanessa looked at the deed with her name on it, looked at the trust fund that would give Maya every opportunity she'd never had, looked at the man who'd been a stranger 1 week ago and was now offering her a completely different life. And for the first time since that rainy night, she let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, she deserved it. Vanessa carried the folder with her for 3 days, unable to sign, unable to let it go. She'd pull it out at night after Maya fell asleep, read through the documents by lamplight, trying to believe this was real and not some cruel setup. During a slow afternoon at Rose's, she sat at the counter with regular Joe, the folder between them. He'd been coming to this diner for 20 years, seen everything, said little. But he looked at her now with those sharp old eyes and asked, What's holding you back? What if accepting makes things worse? Vanessa said quietly. What if I take this and everything falls apart? What if I'm not good enough to? Or, Joe interrupted, stirring his coffee slowly, what if it makes everything better? When did you start being afraid of better, kid? The question hit like a punch. When had she started believing that struggle was all she deserved, that reaching for more was dangerous? At home that evening, Maya found the paperwork on the kitchen table. She traced the words with one small finger, sounding out the big ones. What's this, Mommy? Vanessa sat down beside her, choosing her words carefully. It's a chance for us to have our own place. The diner would be ours. We could make it exactly what we want it to be. She paused. But it's scary, really scary. Maya looked up at her with those serious 8-year-old eyes, the ones that sometimes seemed far too old. You told me brave people get scared too. They just do it anyway. Vanessa's breath caught. Her own words from the night Maya had nightmares about starting a new school thrown back at her with perfect clarity. The decision was almost made when Derek showed up 2 days later. He didn't knock, just waited by her car in the parking lot after her shift, custody papers in hand and that smug smile on his face. You're all over the news fighting with cops, he said, handing her the envelope. Making scenes, putting yourself in danger. A judge is gonna love hearing about that. Maya deserves stability, not whatever chaos you're bringing into her life. Vanessa stared at the papers, rage and fear warring in her chest. She'd spent years playing it safe, keeping her head down, trying to be invisible enough that Derek wouldn't bother them. And here he was anyway, using her one moment of courage against her. Playing it safe hadn't protected her, it had just made her smaller. See you in court, Derek said, walking away with that same satisfied swagger. Vanessa looked at the custody papers, then at the folder in her bag with Michael's offer inside. If she was going to fight, she might as well fight for something worth having. The lawyer's office was in a building downtown that made Vanessa feel underdressed in her work uniform. Michael was already there, sitting calmly in the waiting room. When her name was called, they went in together. The lawyer explained each document: the deed transfer, the operating budget, the trust fund. Asked if she understood what she was signing. Vanessa's hands trembled as she picked up the pen, but they didn't shake as much as they had a week ago. She signed her name, each letter deliberate. Michael shook her hand, his grip firm and warm. Welcome to entrepreneurship. That night, Vanessa stood alone in Rose's diner after closing. Jerry had already left, trusting her with the keys. Her keys now, she realized. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting everything in that familiar tired glow. But she didn't see it as it was. She saw fresh paint, warm colors instead of institutional beige. New booths, comfortable and welcoming. A sign outside glowing soft and proud, grace and grit. A place where people like her, the overlooked, the underestimated, the dismissed, would be seen, would matter. She pulled out her phone and started making notes, ideas flooding faster than she could type. 2 blocks away, Marcus stood in his own diner, watching the late news on the mounted TV. The segment showed Michael Gray outside Rose's diner, showed Vanessa's face, announced the inspiring transformation coming to the neighborhood. Marcus's face reddened, his hands clenching into fists. He'd owned Marcus's diner for 15 years, dominated this neighborhood's food scene. And now some waitress thought she could compete with him. Some nobody who got lucky with a viral video. She thinks she's special, he muttered to his empty restaurant. Thinks she can just waltz in and take what's mine. He pulled out his phone, scrolling through his contacts. He knew people who owed him favors, people who could make problems for ambitious waitresses who didn't know their place. We'll see about that, Marcus said to the TV screen, where Vanessa's face smiled in freeze frame. We'll see how long that place lasts. The construction crew arrived on a Monday morning, their trucks rumbling down the street like a promise. Vanessa met them in jeans and an old t-shirt, work gloves already on her hands. She wasn't going to just watch this happen, she was going to build it herself. She painted walls until her shoulders ached, scrubbed floors on her hands and knees, learned to use a power drill from a patient contractor named Lewis. Maya came after school, helping choose paint colors, holding the dustpan while Vanessa swept. The diner smelled like fresh paint and sawdust and possibility. Michael stopped by twice that first week, always in the evening, always respectful. He'd walk through, ask how things were progressing, offer quiet suggestions but never demands. It's your place, he'd remind her. I'm just the investor. By the second week, Vanessa started hearing. Her first employee wasn't from a job board or resume pile. It was Teresa, the woman who'd been sleeping in the alley behind Rose's diner for months, huddled under cardboard when it rained. Vanessa found her there one morning and made an offer, a job cooking breakfast, and the small apartment above the restaurant that had been used for storage. Teresa stared at her like it was a trap, waiting for the catch. No catch, Vanessa said. Just show up on time and work hard. Within 2 weeks, Teresa was making the best pancakes and omelets in the neighborhood, her hands steady and sure, her smile growing wider each day. Then there was Danny, 17 with a record for petty theft, turned away from every job he applied to. Vanessa hired him as a dishwasher. He worked harder than anyone, staying late, asking questions, determined to prove he was more than his worst mistake. But not everyone was happy about grace and grit. The rumors started subtly, whispers in other restaurants, comments on local Facebook groups. She's laundering money for that billionaire. Whole thing's a scam. Who does she think she is? Marcus's name never appeared, but Vanessa knew. She'd seen him drive past slowly, seen the way he watched from across the street. The graffiti appeared one morning, spray-painted across the new sign in angry red letters. Snitch. Vanessa stood in the pre-dawn darkness, staring at it, feeling that familiar exhaustion trying to drag her under. She could call someone, wait for it to be professionally removed, let it ruin her day. Instead, she grabbed a bucket and scrub brush and got to work. Regular Joe found her an hour later, sleeves soaked, the graffiti half gone. He didn't say anything, just picked up a second brush and started scrubbing beside her. By the time the sun came up, the sign was clean. "You need security," Joe said. "I'm former military, I'll do it." "I can't pay much." "Didn't ask what you could pay, asked if you needed help." The intimidation escalated. Construction workers reported being followed to their cars, threatened to leave the job. Marcus had hired local thugs to make his point. But the neighborhood pushed back harder. The Korean grocery owner 2 doors down organized a "We Stand with Vanessa" campaign. Local business owners put signs in their windows. The neighborhood watch started volunteering shifts, keeping eyes on Grace and Grit during renovations. Maya's school held a bake sale, the kids proudly presenting Vanessa with $347 in crumpled bills and coins. "For your restaurant, Miss Vanessa," Maya's teacher said, "because you taught our kids that standing up matters." The mural project was Maya's idea. She and a dozen kids from school, armed with brushes and permission from Vanessa, painted the side wall facing the street. Diverse faces, all different ages and colors, standing together with fists raised. Across the top in bold letters, "We stand together." It became a neighborhood landmark within days. People stopped to take photos, to point, to remember. Marcus made his final move a week before opening day. The health inspector showed up unannounced, clipboard ready, face already set in disapproval. He nitpicked everything: temperature logs, grease trap placement, the angle of a ventilation hood. "You've got 48 hours to fix these violations or you don't open," he said, handing Vanessa a list 3 pages long. She knew Marcus had paid him, knew this was designed to break her. Vanessa didn't sleep for 72 hours. She called in contractors, worked through the night recalibrating equipment, documenting every single correction. Teresa and Danny stayed with her, bringing coffee, helping however they could. Joe stood guard at the door. When the inspector returned for reinspection, his face fell. Every item corrected, every violation addressed. The documentation was flawless. He left without a word, his fury barely contained. Vanessa stood in the middle of her gleaming kitchen, Grace and Grit's new sign glowing outside, and allowed herself one moment to feel victorious. She'd built something beautiful, and no one was going to take it away. Vanessa woke at 4 a.m. to darkness and silence, her heart already racing. For a moment she just lay there, feeling the weight of everything about to happen pressing down on her chest. Then she got up. The new uniform hung on her closet door, still in its plastic wrapping. Charcoal gray with silver accents, professional and sharp in a way that made her almost not recognize herself. Her name was embroidered on the chest in silver thread. Vanessa Owner, not Waitress, Owner. Her hands shook as she buttoned it up. By 5:30 she was at Grace and Grit. Teresa was already there, prepping the kitchen, her movements efficient and calm. Danny arrived at 6, grinning nervously, his dishwashing station gleaming. The other new hires filtered in: 2 servers, a line cook, all of them people who'd been given second chances, who understood what this place meant. They gathered in the dining room, this family she'd built from broken pieces. Vanessa stood in front of them, trying to find words big enough for this moment. "This isn't just a diner," she said, her voice stronger than she felt. "It's proof that people like us matter, that standing up for what's right means something, that second chances and hard work and refusing to stay small can change everything." She looked at each of them. "Let's show them what we're made of." At 7 a.m., they unlocked the doors. The line stretched around the block. Regulars from Rose's diner came first. Joe, Mrs. Chen, the truck drivers who'd supported her from the beginning. But there were others too, faces she recognized from the viral video's comment section. People who'd donated to the GoFundMe, neighbors who'd put "We stand with Vanessa" signs in their windows. Even some who'd shunned her in those dark weeks after the video, returning now with shamefaced hope. The dining room filled within minutes, every booth packed, standing room only. At 8 a.m. the police chief walked in. Vanessa's stomach dropped, old fear spiking through her. But he approached quietly, waited until she had a moment, then spoke low enough that only she could hear. "I owe you an apology. Barrett and Hayes are on suspension pending investigation. What they did was wrong. What you did took courage." He paused. "This neighborhood's lucky to have you." He left before she could respond, but the knot in her chest loosened slightly. The local news crew arrived at 9, cameras rolling, asking for an interview. From viral moment to community miracle, the reporter called it, filming the packed dining room, Teresa's smile in the kitchen, the mural outside. Then at 10 a.m. Michael walked in, but he wasn't alone. A girl walked beside him, maybe 12, with dark hair and his same serious eyes. Vanessa froze mid-pour, coffee nearly spilling. Michael had said his daughter died, leukemia, 3 years ago. He caught her expression and smiled gently, guiding the girl over. "Vanessa, this is Emily, my daughter." "But you said—" "I said she died. She almost did." Michael's hand rested protectively on Emily's shoulder. "Experimental treatment, last resort. It worked, but we kept it private, kept her out of the public eye while she recovered. I couldn't risk the media circus, the pressure." He looked at Vanessa with something like gratitude. "You reminded me that some things matter more than hiding." Emily stepped forward and, without warning, wrapped Vanessa in a tight hug. "Dad says you're the bravest person he knows. Thank you for standing up for him." Vanessa's eyes burned with tears. She blinked back fast. At 11 a.m., Maya arrived with Vanessa's neighbor who'd brought her from school. She wore her best dress, clutching oversized ribbon-cutting scissors that were almost as big as she was. The crowd gathered outside, phones out, as Maya stood in front of Grace and Grit's entrance. "Ready, baby?" Vanessa asked. Maya beamed and cut the ribbon in one decisive snip. The crowd erupted in applause. The rest of the day blurred into controlled chaos. Orders flying, tables turning, Teresa's pancakes drawing compliments from every customer, Danny keeping up with dishes despite the relentless pace. Vanessa moved through it all in a daze, pouring coffee, taking orders, watching her dream function exactly as she'd imagined. By closing time, they'd served 300 customers. 300. When the last patron left, the team gathered in the dining room, exhausted and electric. Someone started clapping, Joe, standing by his usual booth. Then Teresa joined in, then Danny, then everyone, a standing ovation that filled the space. Vanessa stood behind the counter, surrounded by her team, her family, tears streaming freely now. She looked at the mural visible through the window, at Maya's drawing still taped to the register, at the faces of people who'd believed in her when she couldn't believe in herself. For the first time in her life, she felt like she deserved to be exactly where she was. 6 weeks after opening, Grace and Grit had become the neighborhood's heartbeat. Sunday brunches drew lines out the door, families claiming their favorite booths, kids coloring on paper placemats while parents lingered over coffee. The community board started holding meetings there. Local teenagers claimed the back corner for study groups, and somehow the diner had become the place where the neighborhood gathered to celebrate, to grieve, to simply exist together. Teresa's breakfast special got written up in the local food blog. Danny got promoted to prep cook, his knife skills improving daily under her patient teaching. Every table stayed full, every shift hummed with purpose. Then the national news picked it up. A major network ran a feature, Waitress who stood up to police now employs the unemployable. They interviewed Teresa, who cried talking about sleeping in alleys and now having her own apartment and a kitchen to call home. Danny spoke about being rejected from 47 jobs before Vanessa gave him a chance. The cameras captured the mural, the packed dining room, the way neighbors greeted each other by name. The segment went viral. Defend the Stranger, which had quieted after those first chaotic weeks, exploded again. But this time it wasn't just about Vanessa. People across the country started sharing their own stories. The teacher who'd stood up to an abusive principal, the grocery clerk who defended an elderly customer from harassment, the teenager who'd called out racism in her classroom. The hashtag trended monthly now, each wave bringing new stories of ordinary people finding extraordinary courage. The letters arrived in stacks. Vanessa read them during quiet moments, each one a reminder that what had started in fear and adrenaline had grown into something bigger than she'd imagined. A single mother in Ohio. I was accepting less because I thought that's all I deserved. You showed me I could demand better. I filed for divorce. I start nursing school next month. A teen in Texas. I stood up to my bully because of you. The whole cafeteria joined me. He left me alone after that. Thank you for showing me brave doesn't mean not scared. A veteran in Seattle. Your diner inspired me to start a nonprofit hearing homeless vets. We've placed 23 people in jobs. You started something important. Vanessa kept every letter, filling a box that lived in her office. Marcus's downfall came swift and brutal. An investigative journalist, intrigued by rumors of sabotage, started digging into Marcus's diner. What she found made front-page news. Health code violations going back years, covered up with bribes, tax fraud, wage theft from employees who'd been too afraid to report him. Marcus's diner closed within a week, padlocked by the city. 3 of his former employees showed up at Grace and Grit, asking if Vanessa was hearing. She recognized them. They'd been the ones whispering, the ones who'd avoided her eyes during those dark weeks. Please, one woman said, her voice shaking. Marcus hasn't paid us in 6 weeks. I've got rent due and... You start Monday, Vanessa interrupted, 7 a.m. The relief on their faces made her chest ache. The custody hearing happened on a Tuesday. Vanessa walked into the courtroom in her Grace and Grit uniform, testimony prepared, character witnesses lined up. But the judge barely glanced at Derek's petition. Let me see if I understand, the judge said, looking over her glasses. You're arguing Ms. Vanessa is unfit because she defended someone from police harassment, started a successful business and became a pillar of her community. She set the papers down. Petition dismissed. Ms. Vanessa retains full custody. Derek's face went red, but he didn't say a word. That evening, Vanessa and Maya celebrated with pancakes at Grace and Grit, sitting in their favorite booth while Teresa piled on extra chocolate chips and whipped cream. Maya swung her legs, grinning with chocolate on her face, and Vanessa thought about how close she'd come to losing this, losing her, losing everything. We won, Mommy, Maya said simply. Yeah, baby, we did. A month later, Michael invited Vanessa to lunch at a downtown restaurant so fancy she had to Google the dress code. He was already there when she arrived, Emily beside him, both smiling. I wanted you to be the first to know, Michael said, sliding a folder across the table. Different folder, same life-changing contents. I'm starting a foundation, the Stand Up Fund. Grants for small business owners who speak truth to power, who do the right thing even when it costs them. Vanessa opened it, saw the mission statement, the funding commitment, the board members. Grace and Grit is our first case study, Michael continued. Proof that courage and capital combined can transform communities. We're launching next month. I wanted your blessing. Emily leaned forward, earnest. We're going to help lots of people like you, people who are brave. Vanessa looked at them both. At this second chance she'd been given, at the ripples spreading outward from one rainy night when she decided that silence was too expensive. "You have my blessing," she said, "and my thanks." Because it turned out that defending a stranger hadn't just changed her life. It had started a movement. 6 months after opening day, Vanessa stood behind the counter at Grace and Grit as the evening light turned golden through the windows. The last customers had filtered out 20 minutes ago, leaving behind the comfortable quiet of a day well done. She wiped down the counter in slow, methodical circles, the rhythm soothing after the dinner rush. In the kitchen, Teresa and Danny were joking about something, their laughter carrying through the service window. The sound made Vanessa smile. They'd become family, this unlikely crew of second chances and hard-won hope. She looked around the diner, really looked. The mural Maya had helped paint glowed on the far wall, those raised fists and determined faces now a neighborhood landmark. Regular Joe dozed in his favorite booth, newspaper folded on the table, his security shift done for the day. Photos lined the walls, community events, the ribbon cutting, customers who'd become friends, moments that proved this place had become exactly what she'd dreamed. It was hard to reconcile this with who she'd been 6 months ago. The terrified single mother counting coins for groceries, working double shifts just to stay afloat, who'd learned to make herself small and silent because speaking up only brought trouble. That woman felt like a stranger now. Footsteps on the stairs pulled her from her thoughts. Maya appeared, backpack slung over one shoulder, a paper clutched in her hand. She was supposed to be doing homework in the office upstairs. "Mommy, look," Maya said, practically bouncing. "My teacher asked us to write about our hero. I wrote about you." Vanessa took the essay, her throat already tightening. Maya's careful handwriting filled the page, some words spelled wrong but the meaning crystal clear. "My mom taught me that being brave isn't not being scared. It's being scared and doing what's right anyway." She stood up for someone when everyone else was quiet. Now she helps people who need second chances. She's my hero because she showed me that one person can change everything. Vanessa pulled Maya close, breathing in the strawberry scent of her shampoo, feeling the weight of every choice that had led to this moment. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was thriving. And she was helping others thrive too, Teresa with her apartment and purpose, Danny with his culinary dreams taking shape, the neighborhood with a place that chose kindness over profit. "Come on," Vanessa said softly, "let's lock up." They walked to the door together, Maya's small hand in hers. Vanessa turned off the lights one by one, leaving only the sign outside glowing warm against the darkening sky, Grace and Grit. The neighborhood had changed too. Quieter now, safer, kinder. A police car rolled past and the officer inside, new to the beat after Barrett and Hayes's dismissal, nodded respectfully through the window. Vanessa nodded back, no fear, no flinching. She locked the door and stood there with Maya, looking at their reflection in the glass. One moment of courage had led to this. 24 hours from defending a stranger to discovering he was a billionaire. But it wasn't really about Michael or his money. It was about choosing to stand up when staying silent would have been easier. Standing up for a stranger had become standing up for herself. For Maya. For everyone who'd ever been told they were just a waitress, just a kid with a record, just someone who didn't matter. Fear into hope, silence into strength, invisibility into impact. "Ready to go home?" Vanessa asked. Maya squeezed her hand. "Ready." As they walked to the car, Vanessa thought about everyone watching this story unfold. Everyone who'd stayed silent when they saw something wrong because speaking up felt too dangerous, too costly, too hard. So ask yourself, what would you risk to defend what's right? Because 24 hours from now, your courage could change everything. One choice, one moment of standing tall when it would be easier to look away, that's all it takes. What's your stand? That was today's story. If it moved you, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to remember their power. Subscribe for more stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And tell us in the comments, what's the bravest thing you've ever done? We're listening.